What is up, YouTube? It's your girl Evelyn, and today I will be recapping lesbian period drama Ammonite, or as I like to call it, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, except overcast. So sit back, enjoy the video, and as always, I will be spoiling the entire film, so proceed with caution. It's England in the 1840s, and Mary Anning is a sad paleontologist who prefers rocks to most people. She lives with her sick mother Molly in the seaside town of Lyme and spends her days collecting fossils, shells, and curios to sell to tourists. While on a routine fossil hunt, Mary finds a large ammonite, and thanks to Google, I now know that an ammonite is the fossilized remains of a squid-like mollusk that lived millions of years ago.
And if you don't know, now you know.
The next day, Mary's cleaning her big ol' ammonite when a well-to-do visiting Londoner and his wife stop by the shop. The Londoner is RODERICK Murchison, and he's a huge Mary Anning fanboy. Turns out, Mary's kind of a big deal in the geology world, or at least she used to be. She's been discovering prehistoric fossils since she was a child, and her finds have led to countless breakthroughs in the scientific community. But as a lady in the 1840s, Mary is excluded from that same scientific community, and most of her work is credited to men. So now poor Mary is forced to sell seashells by the seashore to support herself and her ailing mother. Fanboy Roddy is an amateur paleontologist and wants to accompany Mary on one of her fossil hunts. He offers to not only pay her for her time, but also to purchase the big ol' ammonite. Mary reluctantly agrees because, well, money. We then get a glimpse into Roddy's life with his wife Charlotte. Roddy controls every facet of Charlotte's life and treats her like a child. When she tries to take a little initiative in the bedroom, he shuts her down, telling her now isn't a good time to have another baby. The next day, Roddy reports to his fossil apprenticeship, and although Mary treats him with thinly veiled disdain because, well, she treats everyone with thinly veiled disdain, he has a great time. But when he returns to the hotel, he finds Charlotte still in bed. We then find out Charlotte is suffering from mild melancholia. So the thing about this film is it's very minimalistic in the information it gives you. Things are hinted at but never fully explained. In Charlotte's case, it's strongly insinuated that she's lost a child, but exactly how or when, we don't know. But we do know she's still in mourning because she wears black every day. Roddy has plans to travel abroad for the next several weeks, but instead of taking Charlotte, he decides the brisk sea air of Lyme will be good for her, but he's worried about leaving her alone. So he asks his new BFF Mary to let Charlotte tag along on her daily fossil hunts. And Mary's like,
absolutely fucking not.
And Roddy's like, I make it right, I make it right, make it right. The next day, Charlotte reports for fossil duty, and things get off to a wordless, awkward start. Mary tries to give Charlotte a hot pocket, but all Charlotte wants to do is sit on a rock and stare at the ocean.
A few moments later.
Then, out of nowhere, Charlotte decides to give a legendary fossil hunter unsolicited advice on how to fossil hunt. Shockingly, this doesn't go over well, and the two women squabble. Mary suggests that Charlotte go do something else, like take a nice refreshing sea bath to cure her melancholia. And that's exactly what Charlotte does, in freezing, choppy waters. The next day, Charlotte shows up for fossil boot camp and immediately collapses in Mary's arms. Dr. LIEBERSON, the town's sexy new MD, diagnoses Charlotte with a high fever, likely caused by this. He tells Mary that Charlotte needs around-the-clock care or she'll die. Mary takes Charlotte in and even sleeps in a chair so Charlotte can have her bed. A few days later, Charlotte's still in bad shape, so Mary goes to fetch some healing salve. The salve is made by a pleasant woman named Elizabeth, whom Mary seems to hate for no discernible reason. Mary refuses to look Elizabeth in the eye, and when Elizabeth invites her inside, Mary storms off. Back home, Mary rubs the salve on Charlotte's back, then on her chest, while staring at her in a totally heterosexual way. A bit later, Mary is sketching Charlotte for some reason, and the pencil ASMR is so loud, Charlotte wakes up. Doc LIEBERSON pops in to examine Charlotte and is shocked to find her alive. In fact, He's so impressed by Mary's caretaking skills, he gives her the look. Now that Charlotte's feeling better, she ditches the black and asks Mary to take her to the beach. Things between them have thawed considerably. Charlotte is clearly grateful to Mary for saving her life, and Mary is clearly grateful she got to rub Charlotte down with some Vicks Vapor Rub. Out on the beach, Charlotte takes off her shoes and socks, which is like the 1840s equivalent of second base. The two women steal glances at each other and say nothing.
It looks like...
Back at the crib, Mary watches Charlotte pet a baby, then clutch her stomach looking sad. So now, Mary knows that Charlotte lost a child. Later on, Charlotte has a breakdown and Mary comforts her. And that night, Mary tells Charlotte that Mama Molly had 10 children, but 8 of them died, because it's the 1840s. As they get ready for bed, Charlotte realizes Mary has been sleeping in the chair and invites her to share the smallest bed in the world. The next day, sexy Doc LIEBERSON stops by, but this time, he's there for Mary. He invites her to a concert at his house, but Mary refuses to go without Charlotte. That evening, everyone's pre-gaming before the concert, and poor Mary looks super uncomfortable. She goes outside for a smoke, while the social Charlotte happily mingles. When Mary returns, she's dismayed that Charlotte has become friends with her arch-nemesis, Salve Lady Elizabeth. Mary stares at them intensely, for a really long time, then leaves. Later that night, Charlotte arrives home, upset that Mary left her. Mary is in the middle of writing something, and Charlotte straight up jacks her notebook and reads it aloud. It's a love poem that's clearly about Charlotte. Charlotte then tenderly touches Mary's hand, but Mary pulls her hand away. The next day, while fossil hunting, the women make a huge find and bring it back to the shop. After hours of cleaning the fossil, Charlotte's tired and ready to call it a night.
Good night.
The next morning, Mama Molly is casually coughing up blood when a letter from Roderick arrives. Meanwhile, Charlotte and Mary are out on the beach having a gay old time. Literally. It's dinner time and Charlotte invites Mama Molly to join them. But Mama Molly's like,
No, hard pass.
but here's a letter from your husband. Charlotte reads the letter and afterward runs off crying. Not long after, we get to watch the sex scene that Kate and Saoirse personally choreographed. And
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular, never the same, totally unique, completely not ever been done before, unafraid to reference or not reference, put it in a blender.
The next day, Charlotte's packed and ready to go, and Mary is seeing her off. They stare intensely at each other before Charlotte gets in the carriage and leaves. Mary returns to her sad life, just a little sadder, which is the perfect time for Mama Molly to drop dead. Evil Salve Lady Elizabeth stops by to pay her respects, and turns out she's not Mary's arch-nemesis after all. She's just her ex-girlfriend. Elizabeth apologizes for hurting Mary, but explains it wasn't because she didn't love Mary, but because Mary kept her at an emotional distance, and Elizabeth simply got tired of trying. She tells Mary that Charlotte seems to be a good fit for her, which is great because soon after, Mary receives a letter from Charlotte and immediately packs a bag and hops on a ship to London. Mary arrives at Charlotte and Roddy's huge house, and Charlotte practically jumps into her arms and can't stop kissing her. Charlotte has a surprise for Mary and is giddy with excitement. The surprise is a bedroom. Charlotte wants Mary to move in and be her live-in side piece. And Mary's like,
You got the wrong bitch.
She tells Charlotte this is not what she came for and leaves to find a Motel 6. The next day, Mary decides to visit the British Museum, where one of her fossilized dinosaurs is displayed. While she's looking at it, Charlotte pops up, and they stare intensely at each other through the glass display case. And that is the end of the movie. That is it for the recap. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more videos just like this one, and I'll see you next time.